Hello and welcome to India's Angels, the show that puts the spotlight on the value of risk capital and how its nature is evolving in the Indian entrepreneurial system. I'm Shireen Bhan. Now, one of the latest additions to the investment landscape in India is the Startup Accelerator. Some are based on successful models in Silicon Valley and some are experimenting with formats to create a fit for India. It's too soon to tell what will work and what will not, but it is perhaps the right time to start looking seriously at these experiments. This week on the show, entrepreneur Shripati Acharya, Bala Parthasarthi and Sanjay Swami of Startup Accelerator Angel Prime take us through their startup studio model and tell us why they think Indian product companies are not too far from really making it big. Also on the show, we meet the team behind Social Venture Partners India Chapter.
They're just coming to us for a check. We always tell them, it's probably an easier check to get elsewhere. If you're coming to us because you want to work and collaborate with us, that's what we're looking for.
When I passed out of IIT, I didn't even know what entrepreneur word meant. How I ended up being an entrepreneur was more of an accident. In Silicon Valley, being an entrepreneur is kind of like the cool thing to do. We are active in the sense that we are very actively involved, but it's also patient, amount of time it's going to take to build a company. We're fully aware of that.
There are three things common to Sanjay, Bala and Shripati. All three have spent considerable time building businesses in Silicon Valley and then India. All three have a deep love for technology and all three have spent time as volunteers with Nandan Nilikani at the UID Smart Card project. This was immediately before starting up Angel Prime in 2011. Now, this Bangalore-based startup incubator likes its startups being lean and the markets they're addressing to be monstrous. They believe that the large markets exist naturally in India. It's the leaning up that entrepreneurs need to work on. So here's what Angel Prime does to help tech startups get in shape. The Angel Prime website spells out a simple 7-step incubation process. Attract tech-preneurs with fire in the belly. Co-ideate to refine concepts.
And our role really is to work really closely with the founders of the company and be the sounding board.
Next, build the first prototype and find early validation for the product.
You got to be flexible, right? So it's one thing to be very focused and drive down a path, but you have to understand what the market signals are, what people are saying, what your customers are saying.
Pivot and launch a minimum viable product, increase investment and grow revenues.
It's kind of like parenting, you step back after some time and let the company run. And there, we sort of morph into becoming more of a board member and a mentor, as opposed to the earlier phase where we were much more hands-on.
And finally, raise institutional capital and let the companies fly. Sounds pretty straightforward and sounds like what a lot of incubators, seed funds, early-stage VCs claim to be doing already. What sets Angel Prime apart is the niche products and cloud tech space they're targeting and the 1 to 3 crore rupees they put on the table for these ideas.
So in the very early stage, you have these accelerators, which put in a little bit of money, anywhere from 1 lakh to 5 lakhs or so. And they typically in a few months very quickly launch an app on the iPhone or Android. And some of them are useful, some of them are good, but that's kind of one class of startup companies. And then there are these venture capitalists who put in, tens of crores of money for companies which have revenue and have an established product and customers. But the gap we find is that the companies which need, for example, 6 months to 18 months of actual product development and building customers and so on and so forth, which need investments which are higher than a few lakhs, there was a gap there, both in the funding and more importantly in the mentoring. So that is the gap that Angel Prime is seeking to fill.
Our first company, which is EasyTap, in this particular case, we needed to get, even the startup team needed to have, very strong, hardware design experience, very strong mobile app development as well as server side. Not to mention that the team had to go around and strike the right deals with the banks, go through the compliance audits that were required, and do all of that long before even processing the first transaction, right? So in these kinds of systems or these types of startups, you'll find that the complexity of the team, the diversity of the team needed, as well as the time and investment it takes before one can get started is the type of startups we want to do.
EasyTap is one of the 3 ventures Angel Prime is presently incubating. And this co-working space managed by Angel Prime has been home to the EasyTap team for the last 18 months. EasyTap is essentially a device that clips onto mobile phones and along with its software kit transforms the phone into a sales device, a mobile credit card swiping device if you will.
Oh, now it's showing that the data is being transferred. Nice, that's good.
Abhijit Bose and Bhakta Kesavachar's EasyTap is already being used in India by Citibank, Flipkart, Bajaj Alliance, Book My Show and Shoppers Stop, and the company has expanded its operations to Kenya as well.
Everyone brings their own area of expertise. Sanjay's got a very deep payments expertise. So as we think about the hardware evolution, how do we kind of differentiate our V2 product, which is actually going to be one of the first in the world, if not the first in the world at its price point. It's a revolutionary product. Sanjay was pivotal in helping us kind of make sure that we knew we had the right roadmap in place.
Look at this device versus what this is replacing, right? It is a credit card reader. It's replacing what is, I would call a brick, which is like this big, this heavy. It's got a big rubber padding because if it falls, not only will it break, it might also break your leg. So in addition, compare it with this, right? So we are looking for disruptive plays which fundamentally redefine the space. And the benefit of doing that is that it automatically leads to monster markets. And it also leads to exciting growth in that area. And we are in a unique stage in that sense in the evolution of the technology today, wherein a lot of very heavy duty and scalable technology is available at a very low cost. The mobile phone is an example, the cloud is an example, and so forth. So combining these in an interesting way to really disrupt large existing industries is a very exciting area.
And this is something global investors are recognizing too. In November last year, a group of Silicon Valley investors led by former Facebook executive Chamath P and PayPal's Peter Thiel invested about 19 crore rupees in EasyTap.
Our model is different than almost everybody else in the world. Instead of taking a cut of the transaction, we realized very quickly that India was a different model and there was not a lot of money in the net spread in payments. And we moved to a completely SaaS-based service, and Sripati was the one who helped kind of whiteboard that out in one session. That was pivotal for us to be able to explain the value proposition of this company and why this is a billion-dollar company in a 5-minute whiteboard pitch, which really helped us when we had to raise money.
It helps that Bala and Sripati have kept their Valley connections alive. Now this has helped not only EasyTap raise funds, but it's also helped Angel Prime attract quality LPs. Chamath P's venture funds, social capital partners and the Mayfield Fund have pumped in over $10 million into the incubator in 2012.
So like with raising any investment, it's a like ongoing process. And first, the most important thing is relationships. So we all lived in the Silicon Valley and we've lived there for nearly 20 years. So developed a number of relationships with some of these people over the long term. So the first thing they look for, and relationships basically means trust, right? Ultimately, that's the most important thing. So especially if it's somebody sitting in the US or anywhere abroad, they've heard great stories about India, but they've also heard horror stories about India in terms of what could go wrong. And so while they would like to have India as a part of their portfolio, their larger investment portfolio, they want somebody who they trust, right? Who runs a clean business and sort of has the sort of Silicon Valley style. We all kind of grew up there in our critical part of our career. That's kind of our thinking. We do bring that to the table. Of course, Indian reality is different. We've been here, we all grew up here and we live here, so we understand how actually to adapt that to the Indian market. But we bring trust. Now, trust is not enough. You have to produce returns, and you have to show that you're capable of delivering. And that actually we had to demonstrate, no matter how close we are with our partnership. But some of our early success, for example, with the EasyTap product, that definitely made the conversations a lot easier. So when we went and approached some people like Jerry Yang, for example, founder of Yahoo, he saw and he liked what we had to present, and he liked our approach.
And what What the team believes is giving Angel Prime the cutting edge is its hands-on approach. And their own skin in the game helps keep operational risks minimal.
Many times, startups start off trying to solve more or less the right problem. But if you point it, maybe 1 degree to the right, you might be solving the big problem and the big opportunity. So getting that right is very important, and that's where we are very hands-on in the beginning, helping out and hopefully helping the companies to avoid some of the mistakes that we have made in the past.
Our investors realize that they are putting its risk capital. With the capital, we are working very hard to make sure that we take out the operational risk, because we are looking at great entrepreneurs so that we can provide them the best guys to take the execution risk. We are actually understanding the markets that we can take the marketing risk out of it, right? And together the operating parts of it actually work out. So while the business model fundamentally is the same as any investment which is made in entrepreneurship and startups, the approach to it is significantly different.
Angel Prime recently launched a CTO in Residence program and is looking to bring in 5 techies who will help them in turn validate business concepts into companies within 100 days. Essentially, looking at working with about 10 ventures over the next 3 years, Angel Prime knows they're onto a big market.
Over the past few years that I've been doing startups here in India, I've routinely seen, potential, parents-in-law or fathers-in-laws of people working on the team calling me and saying, tell me about your company, does it really exist, does this person work here, how much is his take-home pay, things like that. But I've noticed that over the last 2 to 3 years in particular, I'm sure you guys are seeing the same thing, the concept of being an entrepreneur, it's truly seen as a first-class citizen. I think that's one fundamental change that is sort of more of a social change.
Social change is really important, because ultimately it has to be really cool to be an entrepreneur. It's important because it's how you are projecting yourself to your friends and to your family. But in addition to that, I would say there are some very practical on-the-ground realities which have changed, which have really made a difference in terms of starting a company. So for example, when we started Snapfish, while I remember, to put up a website would literally require $1 million. You're buying hardware, you're installing it somewhere, redundant this, software on top of it, and so forth. And if you ask today, an entrepreneur says, okay, I'm going to write, $200, 10,000 rupees, and I have an Amazon server ready, it's running some software, it's all good to go. So essentially the barrier to actually start a company has fundamentally reduced from both a technical standpoint and also a social standpoint. Just one thing I would add is that we're also seeing a big stream of entrepreneurs who are like 35 plus. It is not just a game played by fresh out of college people, and of course there are a lot of enthusiasm, energy there. But it's been pretty surprising for me to see the number of people who have kids, family, a nice paying job, and to quit that and just say I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It's very inspiring personally.
Well, we hope we soon get to a stage where entrepreneurship becomes less of a surprise career option and more of a mainstay, at least for the youth. With that, it is time for us to wrap up the Angel Prime story. But coming up next on India's Angels, we meet the team behind Social Venture Partners India chapter and talk to them about their brand of venture philanthropy.
We think another 5 to 7 years can we create a pan-India network of concerned leaders who really come together and make a difference in our society.